Broadcast tonight, and we're going to be talking about how can I overcome discouragement. You know, a lot of times as Christians, we go through those seasons, those dry spells in our Christian walk when we're discouraged. And and certainly, you know, that can come sometimes from circumstances, what's going on in the world around us, or through our own personal experiences in life. And so we want to take a little bit of a deeper look in that in tonight's discussion. And I have my guest with me here this evening. And so, Janice, hello.
Hello.
My partner in crime. So let's go ahead and we'll just jump over to the screen. You know, I don't know if I got this set up right on the screen, so I may have to do this on the fly here. But let's take a look at what we got here. No, I don't have it set up right, so it's going to be, I'm going to put you up here with me at the top here. Yep, that's not it. Maybe off to the side. How about that? There we go. All right, good enough. I'll take out some of these other, oops, that was me, sorry. I'm just all completely out of control. I'm trying to do this as we go along. And what we want to talk tonight about is how can I overcome discouragement. I do want to take that one other image off of there, and there it is. There we go. Okay. So how about your thoughts just as we begin to plow into this lesson? Any thoughts about this topic itself in general?
I suppose it's something that we all experience.
Yeah, you know. So how about for you?
Can we just go and talk about it as we go?
Yeah, why not? I've been around enough to know when you're giving me a hint. And that wasn't even subtle. So, all right. So let's go through the slides, and we'll just alternate on those. Would you be able to see your screen well enough to read?
Sit really close like this, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't you take the first one, and then I'll take the next one.
Okay. Sometimes the fire of your spiritual passion died down. Sometimes God feels distant. Sometimes you get discouraged. What then? What can you do when you don't feel like you're much of a Christian, if a Christian at all? How can you overcome discouragement? These 6 practical steps may help you to rekindle your spiritual fire.
Okay. Take inventory. Sometimes you don't feel close to God because you aren't close to God. Walk in the light as He is in the light. That's the best way to ward off spiritual discouragement. And when you stumble along the way, take John's advice. If we confess our sins, He is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. 1 John 1:9. Believe in God's promise of cleansing, and you will keep your emotions from getting the best of your faith.
How can I overcome discouragement? Know that it's going to happen to you. Some of the best of God's people suffered bouts of discouragement, so it's not surprising that it happens to the rest of God's people too. David, Elijah, and Paul all knew discouragement. Paul even says in 2 Corinthians that the hardships he suffered while in Asia caused him to despair even of life in 1:8. Just because you're having a difficult time with trying circumstances doesn't mean you're a bad Christian. As a Christian, expect showers of blessings and occasions of drought too.
Keep connected. Here's where too many Christians go wrong. Instead of staying in touch with God and His people, they often pull back in times of discouragement. Big mistake. The writer of Ecclesiastes says 2 are better than 1. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Ecclesiastes 4:9 and 10. Stay connected with God and the people who can help you to get back up.
Talk it out. Talk out your discouragement with God. That's what Paul means when he says pray continually in 1 Thessalonians 5:17. Never give up on prayer. Tell God how you really feel. Pray that he will lighten your load or give you a stronger back. And talk out your discouragement with God's people. Paul says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ, Galatians 6:2. You'll find that a burden shared is a burden lightened.
Okay. Let yourself be accountable to others. Give some mature Christians permission to keep tabs on how you're doing. In your battles with discouragement, make allies of people who won't settle for your excuses.
Wait it out. It's true. This too will pass. Decide that your commitment to God is going to last longer than your periods of drought. Then your spiritual fires will be rekindled. Follow these 6 practical steps and learn to overcome discouragement.
So here's the first question, is that when are you most prone to spiritual discouragement?
You want me to answer it?
Yeah, why not? Because you're the
You're the only one here.
you're the only one on the broadcast. I'll
Right.
share my opinion in a minute, but
I think for me, it's when life seems overwhelming and I'm not asking or believing that God is listening.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that for me, it's, obviously it's those times. I think it's also in times when I'm kind of running down a path where I feel that this is what God wants me to do, but then things blow up in my face. And, and I've made no secret about it that it's just part of my emotional nature to struggle with doubts and questions. And when I get to the place where I'm stuck and I can't find the answer, that can really be kind of wear on me. But one of the things I've have discovered in my own spiritual walk is that when I get to those places, I just really seek the Lord as far as, I've learned to sit with, I've learned to sit with, how would I say it? Uncertainty. There we go. And I don't have to have all of my questions resolved immediately. And so that's hard to do, to sit with that uncertainty. But I really believe that it's important for us to do that in order to overcome our discouragement. Read Psalm 139, 23 and 24. David invites God to search his life. How might maintaining an open and transparent relationship with the Lord help ward off discouragement? Now, you read this passage to me tonight when we were driving back from the pizza joint, and you shared some of your thoughts about it. So why don't you read that passage?
Well, the passage that we were supposed to read tonight is, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting.
Okay. We're having some lagging issues with the broadcast, but
I'm sorry, but I have people trying to call me.
yeah. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb. So.
Well, I turned my ringer off, but I didn't do the Do Not Disturb thing.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit of your thoughts that you had when you were looking at this passage of scripture, some of the comments that you made. Oh, by the way, what does your shirt say? Oklahoma roots. What's that all about? Is that talking about your hair?
No, I'm an Okie.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad was from Oklahoma, and my grandparents were from Oklahoma. So, cousin sent me this shirt that says Oklahoma Roots.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and also tell us a little bit about your other journey that you've had with some discovery on your roots.
Yeah, I all of our life, my mom has said, "Oh, we have a little bit of Cherokee in us, but not enough to even like be a part of anything." And so, through DNA on Ancestry, I had a woman contact me and found out that we're related in that her great grandma and my grandma are sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman is a part of the Cherokee Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was telling me about it and everything. And so, anyway, I'm in the process of getting my citizenship with the Cherokee Nation.
Cool. So
Yeah.
that's good. So, getting back to our study, and tell us a little bit of your thoughts on this passage of scripture or the context that you
Okay.
know, within it.
Okay. Well, first, I was thinking that David wrote this psalm, but then you were saying you didn't know for sure if he did or not. So, whoever wrote it,
Mm-hmm.
they they're talking about how familiar God is with us, and He knows our every thought, our every word that will come from our mouths before we say them. And He talks about how we're created in our womb, and that He knew us before we were formed, and all of this. And He's just in awe of God's love and care for us. And then, I read the verses about us searching Him and knowing our heart and everything. Well, I just decided to read a little bit around it,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you start in like in verse 18, he says, were I to count them, your thoughts, how precious they are to me, how if I were to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Then he says, if only you, God, would slay the wicked. Away from me, you who are bloodthirsty. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. Then he says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting.
Yeah.
And I really liked reading those verses because I think that this is a place where, well, I hate to say this, but I think that's kind of where I have been lately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love God and I'm in awe of Him, but I'm also so aware of the wicked who hate God and who do evil. And I think because of that, I tell myself that I'm evil for thinking those things. And then Satan uses that doubt to keep poking at me. And so then I start thinking, well, I'm not a good Christian. And then I start feeling all alone and far from God. Um, but I know that I need to, brush off those thoughts and know that God is listening to me. That's what it says here,
Yeah.
that God, he knows you. He hears your voice. He knows my anxious thoughts. He searches my heart and he leads me out of this time of depression and doubt and lead me in the way everlasting. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what happened is like I just see so much evil in the world that I can't do anything about, and it causes me more stress.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to go into this at all, except to say that something happened in my life that was pretty horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had that on my mind a lot, and I'm trying not to think about it and stuff. But um, I've also, I see the news, and I'm on a Facebook group where I see a lot of people who are Christians, but they're having a lot of struggles in ways that I think that they shouldn't be struggling probably. And, just even with my own children, just life, it causes
Yeah.
me, I start getting too much stress, and I'm not giving it to God. I'm trying to solve everybody's problems, and take care of all of my own. And I just get so overwhelmed and
Yeah.
frustrated, and so instead of going more to God during those times, sometimes what I do is I just don't have the words to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't even know, you know.
Yeah.
And I might even be answering some of the other questions,
No, that's fine.
but
It doesn't matter.
one of the things that happens too is like, I'm like, you're a minister's wife. You should have it together,
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes feel like I'm a discouragement to other people who think I should always be strong, you
Yeah.
know? So, it all just keeps on snowballing. And then, I do believe that Satan, he is around trying to devour us. He's like a roaring
Mm-hmm.
lion who he can devour.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we get into these kind of craziness in our own life, and it opens
Mm-hmm.
up those doors for him, because then
Yeah.
I start, like my friend calls them the shoulds, and
Mm-hmm.
that's true. I should be praying more, I should be more of encouragement to others, I should, I should do this and that and the other, or I shouldn't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. By the way, the comments aren't working tonight, so I just wanted to let people know that for whatever reason, having some problem with the software on that end. Well, thank you for being open to share about your own story and your own path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's one that a lot of people can relate to. So
Mm-hmm.
we go through those seasons, and so that. By the way, this is a Psalm of David. I looked it up while you were talking, and so that it talks about it being a Psalm of David. So let's go on, and it says here that having suffered hardships in Asia and despairing of life itself, Paul, according to 2 Corinthians 1:9, made a significant discovery. What was that? Let me just read that passage of scripture. Unless you have it ready, that I'm on my way there. There we go, I got it. So,
Okay.
and it says this. It says, he says, I'm going to just back up. He says, we think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed, and I love this part, beyond our ability to endure. And so right there in the Bible, when people say God will not give you more than you can bear, the Bible itself says that that's not true. Paul experienced there in the province of Asia stuff that was far beyond his ability to endure. And he said, and we thought we would never live through it. So it was pretty, and I've been reading through the Apostle Paul's life in the book of Acts. And there's certainly a lot of stuff that's in there that, man, I'm glad I didn't have to suffer like he did. It just seemed like one thing after another, he constantly is experiencing difficulties for his faith. And then he says in verse number 9, in fact, we expected to die. But as a result, we stopped relying on ourselves and learned to rely on God who raises the dead. So through that experience of being overwhelmed, what Paul is saying there, that he discovered that we need to stop relying on ourselves. And I think you were talking about that just a moment ago, where we get into this control mentality of trying to make outcomes, we try to make the outcomes that we desire to happen, and they don't happen. And so what we need to do is instead learn to rely on God, like he says, who raises the dead. He does not face a problem that he cannot solve.
Right.
So it a lot of times is not happening on our timetable, and when it actually doesn't happen according to our expectations, we can be confident that God is accomplishing his good purposes, and just trust him through that. So, okay. Read 2 Corinthians 1:10. What confidence did did going through this experience produce in Paul?
Oh. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us.
Yeah. So that God will continue to deliver us. That was his confidence, you know. I've said before in some of our broadcasts, I know that, I've known a lot of Christians who have faced extreme health crises, and obviously I want to be sensitive when a person is going through that, and I am sensitive to that. But one perspective to adopt is that God always heals the believer, because he will either give you a healing in this lifetime, or he's going to bring you into glory, which is his ultimate healing, which places us beyond the reach of sin, pain, and suffering. So it's good to have that hope and that confidence that we can have.
And I think it is a good thing to remember that it says that he has delivered us before and he will deliver us again. And that's a lot of the reason why we can have that hope, is because we know he has delivered us, even us, before.
Yeah.
We have a history with God delivering us in situations in our life, and he will continue to do that. So, we can't just say, well, this time I'm just freaked out and, giving up on God. We know that he will deliver us again.
Yeah. That's the advantage of developing a personal history with God. Because then you can look back over the course of your life, and there have been plenty of times, plenty of occasions when God has delivered us from unwanted circumstances and difficulties. And so you can look back on it and say, hey, I've learned from this. And as I've talked to our daughter Karen about this, is that God oftentimes is like an 11th, he's not even an 11th hour God. He's more like an 11th hour and 59 minutes God. And in some cases he even lets the time pass. That's what happened with the crucifixion of Christ, is that I don't know what the expectations of the disciples were, if that Jesus was going to just somehow miraculously come off the cross or something like that. But he dies, and so, and I think that, that really rattled their confidence and caused them to question. But 3 days later, God rose Christ from the dead. And so God is able. He's able to break through whatever barriers that we are experiencing in our life, and we just need to trust him in that process. That's hard. How about for you, when it comes to the matter of either your personal history with God or trusting God in those types of circumstances?
Well, I trust God. Sometimes I guess I'm like the little kid kicking and screaming, wanting to know, but why?
But why, God? Why did you let this happen?
I know.
I think that's I personally believe that's like the number one reason why people go down the road of doubt and disbelief, is that I think that many, many people have a basic belief in God. And I would say that the vast majority of people do. But then when life blows up in their face and God doesn't deliver them the way that they think that he should have, then they question, his
Mm-hmm.
intent
Mm-hmm.
and his goodness and his existence even, you know. So let's go on. Read 1 Thessalonians 5:17. We have it here in the contemporary English version, so you don't have to look it up.
Okay.
But it says, it reads, and never stop praying. Why do you think people stop praying when they're discouraged?
I think that sometimes maybe I feel unworthy,
Mm-hmm.
to be discouraged or to complain about that, or too discouraged to think of words to pray.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I know, that we need to keep on praying for God for help and to feel
Mm-hmm.
his presence and to grow in our faith.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got a cough.
Okay. I was going to mute you, but I didn't move my mouse over there fast enough. So,
Oh, sorry.
so, but yeah, I think that people stop praying oftentimes because of this. What's the use? It didn't do any good, And we think that prayer is just a means. I think that a very immature and naive understanding of God is that prayer is a means of manipulating God to get from him what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a matter of God, please change these circumstances or change me.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's the big thing. A lot of times he doesn't change your circumstances, but he can change you.
Yeah, and there's value. There's really value. I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching sessions here lately, and that there's there is a lot of value in going through pain. A lot of times, what we do is that we fail to draw from that circumstance the good that God seeks to bring to us through that, And then it seems a lot of times then we're back in school again trying to learn the same old lessons,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, what are some good reasons to keep praying when you're discouraged?
I think that we need to keep praying so that we can feel his presence,
Mm-hmm.
and grow in our faith. Be
Yeah,
comforted.
yeah, yeah. That to stay connected, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So Paul says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. What are some practical things you could do to help other Christians with their burdens? Here's one that I just realized here lately. It's not like it's a breakthrough type of thing. It's just sometimes you learn the same old lessons over and over and over, but sometimes it's just a matter of checking in.
Mm-hmm.
You say, hey, I've been thinking of you. I'm just wondering how things are going, you know. And so I think that we need to have that type of, um, you know. And I think sometimes we're afraid because we fear that the other person is going to see it as an intrusion.
I think I'd almost rather now err on that side of intrusion than
Mm-hmm.
I don't care.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. So,
I was thinking about that, and I was thinking people need to, including me, we need to learn how to listen.
what?
When someone is talking, we have to learn how to not be Job's friend.
Oh
and
yeah,
just be
yeah,
telling him,
really.
oh, well, you must have done something wrong, or,
Mm-hmm.
or if you just pray more, you'll feel better, or whatever. And we
Mm-hmm.
just need to listen and hear people's heart.
Yeah, sometimes we have those
And,
glib spiritual answers,
mm-hmm,
and sometimes somebody just needs the opportunity to, um, you know, get it out of their system.
also, you can pray for them or with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can encourage them, be an example for them, and how that you are using, how you're taking care, helping others. And you can also provide for their physical needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that really makes a lot, like we have some friends that are really good at when you're sick or feeling a little down or whatever to bring you food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's so nice, and
Yeah.
I told him, I says, man, you really have that gift, and it's just so makes you feel really loved and cared for when someone knocks on the door and they have a dinner
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. Mm-hmm.
I think, shooting somebody a text or an
Mm-hmm.
email, or even, the lost art of a personal handwritten note,
Mm-hmm.
those types of things
Mm-hmm.
make a big difference. Your mom has been good about that her whole life long, writing notes to people.
Mm-hmm.
We just celebrated her 90th birthday the other
Mm-hmm.
day. That was fun.
Yeah.
So we had a chance to drive up to the San Francisco Bay Area where she lives. And you could see the delight on her face
Mm-hmm.
to be surrounded by family,
Yeah.
you know. And she even
She
kind of,
loved it.
yeah, she even kind of got a little bit giddy.
She did. Very silly.
So,
Silly 90-year-old.
yeah. So, so okay. It says, read James 5:10 and 11. What lessons about overcoming discouragement are found in this passage? Do you have that out there?
Yeah. James 5:10 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy.
Yeah. So, what lessons about overcoming discouragement are found in this passage? One would be, of course, to be patient.
And persevere.
Yeah. My problems are never resolved fast enough. Never, ever, ever, ever. You know. But one of the things that we see too, that the Lord is full of mercy, and we need to stand in that. And I
And
think that,
compassion.
yeah, compassion. I think that there again is one of those areas where Satan undermines our a sense of security, is because we kind of feel like, well, Lord, if you really loved me, you wouldn't let me be going through this type of stuff. And
We must be like adult children to God.
yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You love them.
Yeah.
You have passion for them,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't live their life.
You can't. Yeah.
You can't tell them what to do. You can't make it all better for them. You can't do anything
Yeah.
but pray.
Yeah. So okay. Finally, was that what are some practical steps you can take to overcome discouragement in your life, or to help someone who is currently discouraged?
I have to apologize. I put a humongous mint in my mouth because I've been coughing. Now I can't hardly talk.
That's all right. So,
But I did put something for this.
yeah.
I put read the word more often,
Hmm.
pray, confess to others that you can trust that you are discouraged,
Yeah.
look back on your life, and remember the times that God has brought you out of these situations that were discouraging before.
Hmm. And how about also ask for help?
Oh,
You know. Well, I'm not saying that your answers aren't good. I'm just saying ask for help.
that's a hard one for me.
I know it is because you're a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
You're a fixer. You're not the. You have a hard time being the fixie.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So, but hey, I'm going to encourage folks to pray for you. They don't need to know all the details of some of the stuff that you've had to deal with here lately, but they can pray for you anyway.
Yeah.
You know. So, okay. Well, let's go
We
ahead
get
and we'll wrap this thing up with our final few comments here. Let me get there. There we go. I'll start off, then you can do it. People sometimes say that God won't let you face anything beyond what you're able to bear. That's true if you're talking about temptation. God always protects us from crushing temptation. Paul says, "No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear." 1 Corinthians 10:13. But with trials, it's another story.
to the same group of Christians, Paul writes, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure far beyond our ability to endure." 2 Corinthians 1:8. Paul knew trouble that was beyond his ability to endure. Paul's statements aren't contradictory, but complementary.
Yeah. Okay. With the promise that temptation will never be more than what you can bear, you can count on God's protection from sin. Sin is never inevitable. But with trials, you may face circumstances that stretch you beyond your limits. There, in your weakness, you may discover what Paul says, but this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. 2 Corinthians 1:9. God offers protection from sin and power for living. What more do you need? And so the next time that we meet, we're going to talk about how can I best manage my conflicts with others. Hey, I have a whole course on that, and so maybe what I will make it. Hopefully, I'll be able to get the comments fixed by next time around, and anybody who wants free access to that course, that I'll do my best to remember that, to grant them that. Anything that you would like to say before we wrap up tonight? Any thoughts about this?
No.
You know, here's what I would like to say in closing, is that the the fact of discouragement is a real challenge for Christians in their Christian life. It doesn't mean you're a bad Christian or an inadequate Christian if you're discouraged. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned, we just touched on it a little bit in our study earlier, but the great prophet Elijah, following one of the greatest victories in his career, he spiraled down into an episode of profound and deep discouragement. So much so that he just wanted to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone like who walks with God at that level experiences discouragement, as we see other people in the scriptures, the prophet Jeremiah, David, and different ones along the way. If we see these great giants of the faith who experience discouragement, then why should we think that we should get a free pass? And we're never going to experience that type of stuff, So,
Can I say something?
No, you said you didn't want to say anything, and so go
Well, you
ahead.
made me think of something. Because on the flip side of that, it's
Yeah.
like, we have never, or okay, I'm going to speak for myself. I have never experienced a lot of the horrible, horrible things like Paul went through
Mm-hmm.
and other people went through. And so I think it's really easy. And I have a lot of friends who I've heard say, I have a lot of pain, or I have this, or I have that, but it's not anywhere near as bad as other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think we have to be okay with not feeling like our pain is not bad enough that we have to acknowledge it. Like
Mm-hmm.
your pain is your pain.
Yeah.
Even I've never been stoned. I've never gotten hungry. Many things that have never ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still sometimes get discouraged, and I don't think that I have to say, well, what a big baby.
Yeah, you don't have to trivialize your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the way I say it: we always feel the pebble in our own shoe.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had that experience before, where you've had a pebble in your shoe, and it really hurts. And the other people around you seem to be walking okay, but you're not. You
Yeah.
know. And so we just need to come to terms with that reality, like you talked about, and also not minimize the pain that we're going through just because, it's not as great as what someone else has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, if you stop and think it logically for a moment, that the only person then who could complain about their pain would be the person who's had the biggest pain in all of history.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And he won't.
Yeah. So, So, all right. Hey, well, I appreciate you joining me for this discussion tonight. I think it's been fruitful, and I hope that those who have been able to watch have been blessed by it. We will circle back around and do this again next week. We're here every Wednesday at 6:30. Try the veal. So, okay. All right. That's it for now. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.